What do we say? What the shot was 7:40?
7:40.
Tiago, you want to clean your lens, Tiago?
Do I want to clean my lens? Not really, but I will.
He calls from WhatsApp or he calls regular?
Regular. I don't know how it works. Yeah, I see. Is that better? Yes.
Much better. You look gray now.
Well, that's what I looked before, buddy.
It was a blurry gray.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways. Okay. So we got up to where we up to? Where did we get up to? Oh, the second two dots. Okay. An interesting story we start off with. It's around 3, 6, 8 lines up from the bottom. Rav Anan, and Eliyahu Gavra. So a person brought Rav Anan, Kanta de Gidalne de Vegeli. He brought him a basket of some sort of fish that would live by, Rashi says it's the small fish, right? I think they're like minnows or something like that, but I don't know where. I'm saying there's tiny little fish. Amalei, what are you doing? Amalei, Dina Isli, I have a din with you. So like he was not makabel the fish from him. Amalei, Psilna Lach Ladina, now you became puzzle to for din. Amalei, Dina Damar, Loi Be'ina. I don't want you to be the dayan. Kabule, the kabalmar. I just want you to be makabelit the loylamanon mar me'akruv bikurim, so that you don't stop me from bringing bikurim. Right, bikurim are the first fruits that you bring from every season or every year, and you give them to the kohanim. Right. So he says, I want to make sure that you'll take bikurim from me. The Tanya ve'ishba mibal. Mi baal shalisha vayavel leisha lekim lechem bikurim esrim lechem sa'arim bekara b'tzikloine. Right, and there's a pasuk melachim, and somebody came from Baal Shalisha, and he brought Elisha bikurim. Right, v'chi Elisha oichel bikurim hava. Did Elisha eat bikurim? Right, he wasn't a kohen. Excuse me. Right, he wasn't a kohen, so why was he bringing Elisha bikurim? Maybe during the Talmud Chacham kilu makar bikurim. If you bring a present to a Talmud Chacham, that's as if you brought bikurim. So that's why this fellow was bringing Rav Anan bikurim. So I'm like kabule leibina the kavel. I didn't want to take the fish that you were offering me, but hasha the amrali time, and now that you gave me the reason, because you want to bring bikurim, because you want to bring a present to a Talmud Chacham, so makabilna, so I'm going to take it. So shari l'kamed Rav Nachman. So what he did, Rav Anan, since he couldn't judge the case, since he accepted the present, so he sent it to Rav Anan, shalach lei, and he sent him, can you judge this person? I became puzzled to din. But he didn't tell him why he was puzzled, right? Rav Anan told Rav Nachman, can you judge this case? He didn't tell him why he can't judge it. So Amar mi deshalach li hachi shma mina krevahu. Rav Nachman is saying that if Rav Anan sent me this person, he said he can't judge him, must be because it's his relative. And Rav Nachman was judging a case that involved Yisayim. Amar, now we're on to today's daf. Amar, and he said, Amar, hayase v'hayase. Both of these are mitzvahs aseis. It's an interesting thing that he got into here. To mitzvahs asay to judge or to let Talmidei Chacham go first, and it's also mitzvahs asay to take care of Yisayimim. So he had two different cases to judge. So which one's he going to go with first? So I say the covered Torah other. So he said the assay of covered Torah is more important. So he went with he let the Rav Anan's, what he thought was Rav Anan's relatives case, he tried it first. So Salke Ladina the Yasmi, he removed the din of the Yasam, V'achse Ladina, and he went down literally to the din of the cousin of Rav Anan. Even the Chaza Bal Dine Yikra the Ka'abedle, since he saw the chashivas that Rav Nachman was giving to what he thought was Rav Anan's cousin, Istatim Tainasa, his tinus became closed up, and therefore he couldn't defend himself. I don't know if it was what he was doing exactly, but whatever it is, he couldn't talk for himself. So basically what happened here was, because this Rav Nachman showed chashivas to this person who Rav Anan sent, and therefore it intimidated the other side, and the other side couldn't say their tinus, which comes out that this was they messed up the din because that Rav Nachman thought that this guy was Rav Anan's relative, and really all the reason why Rav Anan said that he can't judge him is because he gave him a present. So that was messed up. So that's what the Gemara continues. Rav Anan have a rogel Eliyahu dasi gabe. Right, this is a very interesting factual Gemara here. Like that Rav Anan was Eliyahu hanavi was always learning with Rav Anan. Davamasning they say the Eliyahu, and he taught him say the Eliyahu, which is, I'm sure the Olam's heard of that. That's Tana Devei Eliyahu. Right, everybody heard of the Sefer, the Tana Devei Eliyahu. That's Eliyahu hanavi teaching things to Rav Anan. Once Rav Anan did this, and he messed up this guy's din, Stalik. He stopped coming. He went away. So Rav Anan lost Eliyahu because of this story. Yosef Tanisa, he sat in a tinus ubar rachmi, and he asked for Rachmanas for Asa, and then Eliyahu came back. He also have a mabis lebeuse, but when he came back, Eliyahu, for whatever reason, scared Rav Anan. So Rav Anan made a box for Yosef Kameh, and he sat in the box, right, in front of Eliyahu, ad apik le sidre, until Eliyahu taught him a whole seder of something. And this is what when people say seder Eliyahu Rabbah, seder Eliyahu Zuta. When there's an Eliyahu Rabbah, that's not the sefer on Shulchan Aruch. I mean, that's where the name comes from. But there's an Eliyahu Rabbah. So the Tana Devei Eliyahu Rabbah and the Tana Devei Eliyahu Zuta. So the Rabbahs is the one that has most of the teachings from Eliyahu Hanavi to Rav Anan, and the Zuta has less. That's what Rashi and Tosfos both say. Anyway, so if you ever hear of Tana Devei Eliyahu, that's who it was. That's who it was that the Tana Devei Eliyahu was teaching things to. It was to Rav Anan. Right? Fine. So then the Gemara continues. B'shnei Rav Yosef have a rischa. In the years of Rav Yosef, there was anger from Hashem. Right? Rashi says, Kas shal makom, and because of the Kas, there was a famine in the world, a rav in the world. Amri le Rabbanan Rav Yosef, why don't you ask Hashem for Rachmanas to get us out of the famine? Amalu hashto ma Elisha. What about Elisha? When the yeshiva let out, when the Rabbanan left him, have a paishi trey alpha numasan Rabbanan. There were 2,200 Rabbanan still left in the yeshiva that stayed by him. That's how big a yeshiva he had. And when Hashem was angry, they asked him to daven. He didn't. I should daven. So he didn't daven. Right. So now the Gemara goes through how we know that Elisha had 2,200 talmidim left over. How do we know that there were that many left over? And his Mashara said, what am I supposed to put in front of 100 men? What does it mean to put food in front of 100 men? That's what he was telling them to do. He named it the Kulu Lefnei Mea Ish. If it's to put all the food he had in front of 100 men, that's a nice amount of food, right? Which he had 22 portions. That how the Rashi goes through the cheshbon, exactly how he had 22 portions. So to give 22 portions of food to 100 men when there's a famine, that's not so bad. Each one gets a quarter of a portion, give or take, right? No, what it meant is each one of the portions they put down in front of 100 men. That's obviously not too much. That's not too much food. So therefore, if there's 22 portions and each portion is put down in front of 100 men, that means that by Elisha, with 2,200 bachrim left over, either bachrim, rabbanon, or whatever it is. Fine. So if you have a mifti, now the Gemara goes to other examples of how many bachrim were in yeshivas. You have a mifti rabbanon mebei Rav, when the rabbanon left Bei Rav, have a paishi alfei umasan rabbanon. There were 1,100 rabbanon left. Mibei Rav Huna have a paishi timni mei rabbanon.
Says here 1,200.
I'm sorry, it's 1,200. I'm sorry, Masan. Yeah, Masan is
Bachrim or Rabbanon?
What?
Bachrim in yeshiva?
I don't know. It just says Rabbanon. I don't know if it means they were Bachrim or Kailel. Right?
So why did we say that Voloshin started the yeshiva system?
I don't think this. No, they were all leaving. I don't know if this was like a steady yeshiva. They would come here, shiurim, and then they'd go back home. I don't think it was. I don't know if it was yeshiva. Don't know. Mibei Rav Huna have a paishi timni mei rabbanon. From Rav Huna it was 800. Rav Huna have a darash betleiser amiroi. Rav Huna would darshan to 13 amiroi. Amiroi here doesn't mean amiroim. It means, that's where the word amiroim comes from. It means like 13 translators who helped give it over to all the, meaning he had so many talmidim, he needed 13 people to help give it over. So Kiyavakami Rabbanon and Mesivta de Rav Huna, when the Rabbanon got up from the Mesivta of Rav Huna, the Nafzi Glamayu, and they would knock off their jackets, right? Because they were dusting off their jackets. Have a Salik Afka, there was so much dust that the dust went up, the Kasile Liyoima, and the dust blocked the sun. It covered over the day. V'amri b'marava in Eretz Yisrael, which was obviously far away from Babel. Oh, kamalim sifta de Rav Huna b'Bavel. I'm sorry. That they must have just gotten out. If all of a sudden there was a sandstorm or a dust storm that blocked out the sun in Eretz Yisrael, they knew that Rav Huna just let out. Right? It's an interesting thing that we say that many Talmidim. What Naftali was just saying. So I forgot who was saying it. Rav Asher Weiss told somebody. Somebody told me this a couple of weeks ago. Rav Asher Weiss told somebody. He said with technology, the amount of people on shiurim is nowadays is like, he said, Rav Asher Weiss was saying like there's sometimes 20, it's 20, 30,000 people could be listening to shiurim, right? Saying you have it's wild. It's wild that you have that virtually. You have the Daf Yomi Keshubos that have 10,000, 11,000 people on it. It's Pella, right? It's a Pella. Since these days, you don't. I think we don't have that. Anyways, Kimifti Rabbanon mibei Rabba for Rav Yosef. When the Rabbanon left Rabba and Rav Yosef, have a paishi arba meya Rabbanon. He left 400 Rabbanon. But Karl and Ashau Yasmi, they called themselves Yisaimim, right? Because all they were small yeshiva. They only had 400 guys left over there when everybody left, right? When the Rabbanon left Abaya, Papa, have a Paishi Masam Rabbanon. There were 200 Rabbanon. But Karan Afshayu, Yasmi de Yasmi, they called themselves Yisaimim of Yisaimim. That's how small their yeshivas were. Okay, I'm not sure why the Gemara goes off on that, but yeah, but fine. That's the end of that little sugya. Now, Amr Rav Yitzchak Bar Adif, Amr Rav Ami, Mevakri Mumin Shav Yerushalayim, the guys that would check the animal experts, right? That would check the animals before they were brought into the mizbeach. So, who paid them? Right? Who paid? The Gemara is going to go through a whole list of different people who paid them that they did work for the Beis Hamikdash. So, Mevakri Mumin Shav Yerushalayim, the ones that checked into Mumin Yerushalayim. They got it from the terumas halishka. If the Olam remembers what the terumas halishka is from Shkolim,
Someone else got paid.
right?
You were button.
But yeah, so that's where this is coming. This is a continuation of that. All right. So the terumas halishka was, we gave 3 machzas a shekel back then, and then they would go take from that machzas shekels a few times a year, and they would take all the money and use it towards all these things, and then the leftovers they use for these things. So they would take their schar from terumas halishka. So Talmidei Chachamim who taught hilchos shchita kohanim united schar mit terumas halishka, they also did it from terumas halishka. Amar Rav Gidol Amar Rav Talmid Chacham Melamdim hilchos kamitza lekohanim. The Talmidei Chachamim that taught the hilchos kamitza, that's when the kohen has to take from the silas, he has to take out, with his hand like this. So Nightlin scharan mit terumas halishka. They also took it from terumas halishka. Amar Rav Anan Amar Eliyahu. Magi Svarim Sheba Yerushalayim, the people that would look through Svarim in Yerushalayim, they also would take their Svarim from the terumas halishka. Now what were they checking into Svarim? So basically, they went through people's houses. I don't know if they made raids, but people had to bring the Svarim to them to make sure that the Svarim that people had didn't have apikorsis in it. So they weeded out apikorsis that way. Either way, so their salary also came. Fine. Omar Rav Nachman, Omar Rav Noshim Argos b'paroiches. The women who sewed the paroiches, right? The what do you call it? The curtains. They also did. And I say they didn't take it from terumas halishka. They actually took it from the money that was meant for the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. The reason why they had paroiches was because there really was supposed to be walls, but they had paroiches instead of walls. All right, so the Gemara asks, Meisvei, Noshim Argos b'paroiches, the women who sewed up the paroiches of Beis Garmu, and the Beis Garmu, they were the experts in the bread and exactly how to put the bread on the lechem apanim. Lechem apanim was they put the bread, what do they call it? The show bread, right? They would put it on Shabbos morning and it would stay fresh till the next Shabbos. Then they would take it off and put on new ones. Beis of Tinas, Amaisa Ketairis, and the Beis of Tinas who did the Ketairis, Kulan HaYunait L'Schar Mitrumas Halishka. They all took their schar from terumas halishka. So you see that they took it from terumas halishka, not from the bedek Habayis. So it's a kasha on Rav. So the Gemara answers, Hasam b'devavi. There we're talking about the curtains that were put at the bavas, at the gates, right? There were 13 parachas in Mikdash Sheni, right? There were 13 different parachas. I guess they didn't have gates, so they had to do it. They had to put these parachas there. Shiva keneged Shiva sharim, 7 for the 7 gates, right? And then achas lepischa shel heichel, 1 for the heichel, ba'achas lepischa shel ulam, and 1 for the ulam. Beis b'dvir, and 2 is in for the dvir. That's the place in between the kodesh and the kodesh hakadoshim. And Beis kenegdan ba'aliyah, and 2 on the 2nd floor, right? And so again, all these things were there because they did not have walls for. They didn't have walls in the Beis Hamikdash, in the second Beis Hamikdash. Fine. Okay, that's the end of that sugya of how they paid. Now we're going to get into a little bit like Shkolim from the Gemara Shkolim. So Tana Rabbana, Nasham Agadas B'nei and Lepara. If we remember from, I think it was Psachim, right? Yeah, Rashi. No, I'm sorry, Sukkah. So in order to bring up, this is one of the odd phenomena that they had back then. In order to make sure that the parah adumah stayed tahar, you had to make sure that the kids never ever became tummy. So basically, these women, before they got pregnant, lived on a rock that had a space under it, so there'd be no tumah coming from the tahaim, right? And that's where they grew. That's where they brought up their kids. They couldn't go off this rock, right? So
Didn't we have a Gemara about that? Like
in Sukkah. Gemara in Sukkah.
It was like built like this, right?
Yeah.
It's like built like this, where they lived over here, and
correct.
nothing over
There
here.
was a space to block the tumah from going, right? I mean, they lived on a rock the whole life. I don't know whatever. It's quite an interesting thing. Yeah. So either way, they need to be supported. You can't exactly earn a living if you live on a rock your whole life, right? So Nashim Magadlis B'nei Lepara for the parah adumah hayunayt l'schar mitrumas halishka, they would also get paid from the trumas halishka. It didn't come from the trumas halishka. It came from the chashuva ladies. The Rashi says the wealthy women would feed them. That's a machlokes. The Baminer of Huna Meirav on Amud Beis now. Klei shares mahu sheyasem ekacheh bedek. So what the klei shares is like Rashi says, it's the utensils that you used on the mizbeach hachitzon, right, which was made out of stone, and it was movable. So since it was movable, that's considered like a kli. It's not considered like the ground. The mizbeach hapnim was massive, so that couldn't be moved. So that's not considered like a kli, but the mizbeach hachitzon was. So what can you make it from? Kodshim of bedek Habayis. What's the shaila? Tzarich mizbeach ninu. Are they considered part of the mizbeach or mikacheh bedek Habayis? Also, they come from kacheh bedek Habayis because that's part of Beis Din. Are tzarich carbon ninu, or are the utensils the tzarich of a carbon? And karbanas come in terumas halishka, and karbanas come from the terumas halishka. Again, anything that involves the building of the Beis Hamikdash or the maintenance of the Beis Hamikdash came from the bedek Habayis, right? Which was you make donations to the maintenance, the upkeep, whatever you want to call it, right? But karbanas and all those type of things came from the terumas halishka. That's from the machzas hashekel that we gave, right? So the shaila was, what about the mizbeach hachitzon and the kalim that had to do with it? Is that considered part of the Habayis or terumas halishka? So Amalei, ain't nasa elam terumas halishka. Nope, he says it goes from terumas halishka. It's considered utensils. It's not considered part of the actual Beis Hamikdash. So they asked the kasha. So it says in Divrei Yomim, it says let me read on the side here. Haviyu lifnei hamelech. The Gemara's. I'll just read the whole pasuk. I don't know those that have the full pasuk on the side of the Gemara. I'll read it. Chaloisam haviyu lifnei hamelech v'yada eshara kesef v'yaseu kelim luis Hashem kli sharis balas v'kapas v'klizov v'kesef v'yumaylam oilos v'yis Hashem tamid kol yimei yada. So basically, what happened over here was that you had what I don't know what her name. Hold on. Asal Yahu, right? So she was a Russia, and she destroyed part of the Beis Hamikdash. So they had to rebuild it, right? So that's what's going on here, right? So when they were finished rebuilding the Beis Hamikdash, I don't know, rebuilding it, but they fixing it, etc., and then they made all these kalim and the clay sharis. Right, so they said that there was money
renovated.
Renovated. Okay, I don't know. See, I don't know. The problem is I don't know. It's the next line in the Gemara, but I don't even know. I don't know any of the history here. A little bit. I tried to look it up. I don't know exactly how bad it was messed up, etc., But they had to fix it. But it seems like they had to fix kalim, right? So they said kesef. They took the money and they made the kalim, right? So that you see that they used bedek Habayis money for the kalim. So Amalei, so he told him whoever, this is a pasuk in Divrei Yomim, which is in Ksuvim. He said, whoever taught you Ksuvim, it didn't teach you Nevi'im, because he's going to bring a pasuk from Nevi'im, right, from Melachim, that shows you that you couldn't use bedek Habayis. So I myself. I didn't read not Ksuvim and not Nevi'im, so I really have no idea what's going on over here, right? But I don't say that with pride, right? But the bottom line is he brought a raya from the pasuk in Ksuvim, and now he's going to say, well, there's a pasuk in Melachim, Ach la yaseh beis Hashem sipos ki la'isem melach yitnu, right? So again, there's a whole long pasuk on the side, right? Kesef, mizamres, mizrakas, chatzotzos, those are all utensils. Kol klei zov, klei kosem, and a kesef hamuva beis Hashem. Right, so it said that they only use the bedek Habayis for bedek Habayis, not for utensils. So you see, that's the pasuk in Melachim says you can't. Okay, fine. So we have a stira. So that's the Gemara asks. You have a stira from two pesukim. The pasuk in Divrei Yamin says you could use bedek Habayis for utensils, and the pasuk in Melachim is saying not. Like kasha, kanchik, stira. One's talking about where they collected money and then they had leftover. So then you can use it for the mekalim. Kanchik, stira. But here we're talking about where they collected it and it was not left, and there was nothing left. Right? So therefore you can only use it for the Beis Hamikdash and not for any kelim. So Gemara says, V'chi gavu v'siru my havi. And if they collected it and they left it over, so what? Right? Meaning when you collect, there's a din. We had it in Megillah. I think we had it in Megillah. There's a din when you collect tzedakah for a certain reason and then you have enough money, you can't just go spend it on whatever you want. Right? So that's what I think that's what the Gemara means to ask. Leiv Beis Din masna lein. No, the hearts of Beis Din makes tnoyim. Right? Im hutruchu, if they need the money, they need the money. Im lav yehei l'klisha reis. Then it's considered for a klisha reis. Right? Now, Leiv Beis Din masna lein. We use some form of this. This is the practical. The halacha is that you're not allowed to talk in shul, right? You're not allowed to eat in a shul. You're not allowed to talk dvarim b'teilim. You're not in mashul, beis medrash, beis knesses. So what's going on over here? What do we do nowadays, right? So it's almost like they build it with it. They say they build it with a t'nai, a beis medrash, and a beis knesses is built with. This is really a multi-purpose room, right? But we daven here most of the time, right? I mean, it's I'm not going to call it a scam, chas v'shalom, but it's a serious legal loophole. So what happens if they did not build the shul like that? Let's say the people that build the shul had no idea that there was such an issur, and they did not have in mind that they're building the shul as a multi-purpose room that happens to be used most of the time as a shul, right? So then basically what we say is leiv Beis Din masna lein, it goes with what the Beis Din would normally do. And Beis Din always says that all shuls are built on a t'nai. So Mamela, that's what we fall back on. Right?
I ran a special campaign after Hurricane Sandy. I raised a considerable amount of money, and the government did an extra focus on any of these types of campaigns, that I had to be able to give backup proof for anybody I distributed funds to. So there's money that I didn't spend. It's not allowed to be absorbed into anything else. Legally, it's not allowed to be absorbed into anything else. So it's like someone that still needs a tzarech, that was a registered victim of Hurricane Sandy with the government, is the only people that can benefit from that money. Nothing else. So it's sitting there now. I still have a few $1,000s sitting there that I wasn't able to spend yet.
Interesting.
Thanks for telling me, man. I'm a registered Sandy.
Oh, okay. So tell me, what years were you involved with NCSY? Because that's only for NCSY alumni. So just let me know that.
Oh. Yeah, no, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I'm not from yet. Maybe when I become from, I can sign up for it.
There you go. Perfect.
Well, you know what I'm saying? He's got a few grand in his bank account somewhere, everybody. He's putting it out there. He is putting it out there. He did it. It's only he can't give it. Doesn't mean you can't come take it.
Right. You just knock on the door of the OU. They'll be sure and happy to go give it to you.
Anyway, no, I see. So we see a lot of times that the government gets their policy. I don't know if they got it from the halacha or whatever it is, right? But that's So that's what we're saying. Fine. So Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, right? The Tana Devei Yishmael.
I don't hear Debbie Ball chiming in at all around this, but maybe he's not on. But I don't know. I would repeat that again to him, that when you collect enough, that's it. It's done. You can't just go spend it. Whatever. Don't worry. Yeshivas have their own set of rules, so it's fine.
They have their leiv rabban. They have their leiv rabban.
They have their leiv Beis Din masna aleim. Yes, 100%. Right. So Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael. Kli shareis. I think I was in one shul once where the rabbi said, I bedafka kept it kedusha in the shul, except under the Ezras Nashim. They're like an Ezras Nashim halfway. So the Kiddush, he made it under the Ezras Nashim. He said, here I had no kedusha. There, he said, there's no leiv Beis Din masna. I think that's what he told me, if I remember correct. I said, why don't you make him put a sign that everybody that it's usher to talk in your shul, you know? Okay, it's a way out, saying the way to make sure people don't talk. Okay, anyways, Tana very vishmal. Kli sharis by trumas halishka. The kli sharis come from trumas halishka, like the Gemara just said. Shenema es shara kesef. The rest of the kesef. Ezu kesef sheyesha shirayim. What kind of kesef has shirayim? Right. So Habayis is that trumas halishka, right? The trumas halishka has extra money because what happens is, and we learned this in Shkolim. So they brought the machzis a shekel. 3 machzis shekels. Then you had extra, they used throughout the year, they used those shkolim. Well, what did they do with the extra shkolim at the end of the year? The end of the year, Nisan, they started up with the new shkolim. So what do you do with the old shkolim? That was the terumas halishka, that every year they had leftover money. Right? You're not using it for kabbanas that year, they used the new money for that. So that's shiyorei halishka. Fine. So Gemara says, "Ve'ema shirayim gufayu." Why don't we say that it's actual shirayim? When it says ha'ayla, right? When it says v'arach aleh ha'ayla, you make the ayla, which is the tamid shel shachar. Oh, Rav Anan, welcome back. Yeah, so ha'ayla is ayla rishayna, means the first ayla is the tamid shel shachar. So hanavi hakesef kesef rishon. So when we say ha-kesef, it means the first kesef that you use for the year. You don't, for the new year, you use the new money. You don't use the old money. Fine. So Gemara asks Meisvei. So Gemara is now going to ask Akasha. We just said that we're on Kuf Vav Amud Beis around 15 lines down. This is a Meisvei, because we just said that you take the klei sharis come from the terumas halishka. Now we're going to ask on that. Meisvei hak'tayres, right? The k'tayres, the incense. The chol karbanas tzibur, all karbanas tzibur, buying terumas halishka. They all come from the terumas halishka. Mizbeach hazav ulevaino klei shares. The mizbeach hazav and the levina. What do you call the levina? What's the type of levina? It's not frankincense. Frankincense. I
should know this, right?
Yeah, we have the k'tayres expert here. In the cloth, I guess it doesn't have the taich though. Doesn't have. Rav Anan, you're muted. You're muted, but we got to welcome Rav Anan over here again.
I apologize for saying anything in the discussion of Ketairos. I don't know anything about Ketairos.
Levina. Yeah. Anyway, so Levino Kleishar is buying me meiser nesachim. That comes from the extra of the nesachim. Now, what's the extra of the nesachim? So Rashi goes through. There's a Machlokes and menachos. Meaning when they took the pile of flour and they had a heaping teaspoon or a heaping cupful, so then they would flatten it out. So the extra flour they would sell, and that would be the excess, the extra from the nesachim, or you had that they basically would buy all the flour for the year in the beginning, and then they would have to get it for that price. And if they made money, the money went to the Beis Hamikdash, and if they lost, it went to the Beis Hamikdash, right? So that extra, some say that the mizbeach hazav, the levine, and the klei sharis came from there. Mizbeach ha'oila, halishka hazaris, but the mizbeach of the oila, which is the mizbeach hachitzon, and the lishkas are all the different rooms that were around the Beis Hamikdash, va'azaris, and all the azaris by mikachir bedek Habayis, right? As they should. That's the maintenance of the Beis Hamikdash. Chutz l'chayvus ha'azara. Anything outside the azara, buying mishiyarei halishkas, that comes from the leftovers from the lishka. Zui shesheninu chaymas ha'ir u'migdal haseh v'chal tzarich ha'ir buying mishiyarei halishka. Right, that the wall and the migdalis is the how do you call it? The tower. Towers, Migdal David. What did they touch Migdal David? Yeah. V'chal tzarich ha'ir buying mishiyarei halishka. They all come from shiyarei halishka. Right, but you see. Right, that the how do you call it? The klei sharis came from the extra nesachim, not from the shiarei halishka. So the more answers Tanoi, it's actually Machlokes Tanoim, what gets paid for what. The Tanan Meiser Truma, and what they do with the extra Truma, that's the Machzis HaShekel. But what they do with it, that would be the gold, the lining, the thing that they line with gold for the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Meiser Peres L'Kayet HaMizbeach. They would use the extra from the extra Peres, which we'll see soon what that is. L'Kayet HaMizbeach. For the Kayet HaMizbeach means they never left the Mizbeach without having korbanos on it. They need it for whatever reason, if there was a quiet day in the Beis Hamikdash, so they would just bring korbanos just to make sure that the Mizbeach stayed active. So they would bring that from the Meiser Peres. Meiser Truma, the Klei Sharis. So here you see that the Meiser of the Truma comes for the Klei Sharis. Third Shita, Rabbi Kiva Aimer, Meiser Truma, the Kayetz Mizbeach, the Meiser Truma is the Kayetz Mizbeach, Meiser Nesachim, the Klei Sharis. So then here you see that the Nesachim is for the Klei Sharis. The Meiser Nesachim was for the Kayetz Mizbeach, Meiser Truma, the Klei Sharis, and the Meiser Truma is for Klei Sharis, right? So to welcome Rav Anan back, we'll ask his kasha, like, how do you not trust Rav Chanina Skana Koyanim? He's the assistant Koyan, right? We've learned long enough that I know this kasha already for many. Rav Chanina Skana Koyanim, how do you, there's 4 shittas here, and one of them is the assistant to the Koyan, and he tells you what they used it for. Shouldn't he be the one that should have the right to say what it was?
The authority to say it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
you have to go. You have to say something. The Reb Chaim said about the brisker Rav. That's what you mamish have to say that. Reb Chaim said that if the brisker Rav came out that the cows have 3 legs, it's a kasha on all the cows on the farm. It's not a kasha on the brisker Rav. It's a kasha on the cows on the farm. You have to say that. You have to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. But anyways, okay, so that's either way. So we have 4-way Machlokes, exactly how they paid for the Klei Sharis. Right, fine. It was either from the Meiser Truma, Meiser Peres, Meiser Nesachim. I think no, so it's 3 sheets. I think 2 of them held from Meiser Truma. I think. Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is. So it's at least three of Machlokes. Peres Mahi. What is this talking about? Peres. What's this Peres in the Beis Hamikdash? The Tanya Meiser Truma Mahi Oisimba. What they do with the extra Truma money, right? The Machzis HaShekel money. So Loichen Peres Bizol, they would buy cheap fruit. It's interesting. They went into business. They mamish went into business. They bought cheap fruit. They bought low and sold high, right? And with the schar from that money that they made, that's what they used for animals to make sure the mizbeach stayed active. That's what it means that there was extra fruit for the mekayet mizbeach. Okay, so my zev maidin beperes. But what does it mean that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Chanina Skana Koyanim disagreed with what they did with the peres? What does that mean? The Tanan. So you learned in the Mishnah, Meiser Shiari Lishka, the extras from what was left over from the Lishka, which is the leftovers after they paid up everything. Maha Yoisim so like Rimen, Yenos, Shmanim, Uslasas, they bought wine and oil and flour. Vaschar lahektish, and the schar went to hektish, right? Meaning to the tzedakah of the Beis Hamikdash. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva Aimer ein mastakrin b'shel hektish. We don't make money from hektish. Aflei b'shel aniyim. We don't even make money for aniyim. Meaning, you can't go. This is for you, Yeshua. You can't go take money from aniyim and invest it. I'm saying, I don't know what they did with that money, but right, you can't. He's saying you can't invest. Rabbi Shmuel says you invest it and you make money and you give it to the Beis Hamikdash. Rabbi Kiva says, no, you don't do schar with hektish money and not even with aniyim. So, b'shal hektish my time, like, why don't you make money with hektish? So, ein aniyus b'makam ashirus. Right? There's no such thing as being poor in the place where there's ashirus, which is basically what that means is that the Beis Hamikdash is supposed to be a place that should be above it. Right? It's an ashirus. So, an usher is not going to go try and make nickel and dime people and nickel and dime things to make a few dollars. It's not bakovadik, as they would say, for the Beis Hamikdash to be dealing with in the small petty business things. All right, so there's no aniyus b'makom ashiris. B'shal aniyim my time. Why can't you invest aniyim's money? Because let's say you invest the money, and then an ani knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I'd like some money to pay for my meal," and you say, "I'm sorry, I just bought Apple stock with your money, right? So, but I can't give you any money." So it's because of that we do not allow you to invest aniyim's money. I meant to look up today. I think we don't paskin like that, and we hold that you could. It has to be conservative investments. We had it, I think, a week or two ago. Right, the widow and orphans fund we discussed. So, but that's what the Gemara is coming out here, that you can't invest not hektish money, and you can't invest aniyim's money either. Okay, well, we'll stop over here. We continue back with the almana's money. Where we get the almana's money from tomorrow. So what we say, 5:10? 5:10 tomorrow, Bez Hashem, and 7:40. All right, good to know. Rav Anan, good to see you back. Safe.
It was 48 hours to get home. It was unbelievable.
Was that on purpose?
No, because American Airlines is totally incompetent. I mean, it's unbelievable. Can't imagine how incompetent that anything you could think of, they did worse than that.
You were on a direct flight and you ended up in Barcelona.
No, we were supposed to change in Barcelona.
Ah, yeah.
We ended up sleeping. It wasn't the fact that they had a maintenance. They had a problem on the plane. Good, okay. The way they handled us, terrible. We could have had a nice day in Barcelona, and they messed it up. Everybody had a horrible, disastrous 30 hours.
But you had to stay in the airport and all that.
Until they made up their mind what they're going to do. We sat for 6 hours in the airport. Then they took us to hotels which didn't have any room for us. So we sat in the lobby of a hotel for 3.5 hours. No contact from American Airlines to anybody in any of the parties. Nothing. They just totally disappeared.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's the airlines for you.
It's unbelievable. Such a monster corporation. They mamish had total incompetence. Mamish incompetence.
Right here. All right. Well, it's good to have you back, at least whole and healthy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
When did you get back?
What
time did you get back?
8 o'clock. Something like that.
Wow. And you logged on. Give out.